Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Modern Investing on Bot TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guests today are Dr. Milan Sombrak. Welcome to the show, Milan.
Thank you for inviting me, Sasha. Delighted to be here.
Thank you. Great to have you as always. And Jim Eat from Eat Foundation. Welcome to the show, Jim.
I thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here, but not happy to be tracking my investments.
You're not alone, I guess. The only possible way to be on top of your investment in this environment, in my opinion, is gold and silver.
You
Whether
said
it's
that last week, Sasha, and you were prescient. The gold is up. Yeah.
yeah,
Hold it a second. Hold it a second. Hold it a
yes.
second. The first stock market was founded more than 400 years ago in Amsterdam. And every decline, without exception, has been followed by a recovery and continued growth. Now, sometimes it took a while. When the market tanked in 1929, it took 25 years for it to reach its previous levels, but it has recovered every time. So if you think long term, we don't have much to worry about.
But how are tulips doing now? There is always a frenzy about something, and sometimes they stay down. They never come back. So,
You know what the problem is, Milan, with what you just said? Mm, the problem is that the stock market, when it's falling, and let's agree, I don't know, maybe you have some other thoughts, but I believe that we're in a bear market now.
I think we might be in a recession.
Well,
Already.
it doesn't exclude recessions. We can be
Right.
in a bear market and recession and depression. We can have everything. Now, what's the problem is 25 years. It's difficult to wait for so long. I will try, but I may not last that long. Well, my children, my grandchildren.
I don't have a 25-year plan myself.
No, the problem is this: that it's falling like a stone, and it's the bottom is nowhere to be seen yet. You haven't even actually started the real decline. It's
Oh,
okay, Trump's tariffs and this, that. The
That's
decline
clear.
has not even been started. We're still people who, okay, just a little bit. Okay, we'll get a little bit more down, and then we're gonna have. It will be suckers rally. It will be something else. It will be oversold condition. No, it's not going to be oversold condition. It's not going to be suckers rally. It's not going to be anything. It's just all the way down, 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 until there will be blood on the streets. There is no blood. We are going down.
you know, you
That's
know,
right,
but-
but there is no blood. People are not jumping out of the windows. People are not shooting themselves. There is no blood. And until there will be a blood, we are going down, down, down almost every single day.
as the
Except
market
gold and
as the market goes down, it becomes a greater and greater bargain if you're buying the United States market as a whole. Now, problem is, Benjamin Franklin thought that taxation without representation was bad and it was an evil thing. When you take a look at taxation with today's representation, it's worse.
It's not gonna help until we'll see the blood. We
It's
don't
not
see
taxation
the
that's the
blood.
problem.
We need to see the
I
blood.
can't believe it. We now have a new bumper sticker. Blood is the bottom.
Yeah, you're right, Jim. You're absolutely right.
Selling puts and calls on SPY at the beginning of a day with the expiry date at the end of the day and just out of the money has returned an average of 18% annually for nearly 200 years, and it continues to do that. I'm making money every day. I don't care the fact that the market is dropping, and very often the drop in the market is greater than the premium income that we get selling puts and calls. But it doesn't matter because we know that someday it will recover. And if we're not around, our estate will be around. So you can
Okay.
still make money.
So you're still making money with your strategy. You're still making money in today's market.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what's
Overall,
happening with
overall,
strategy? He's taking a huge losses on the principal of S&P. Let's
true,
admit
true.
that.
That's true. Yeah, that's
Which
true.
is offset by premiums here and there from the options selling, but it not even nearly equals
Oh
to.
no, that's true. That's true, Sasha. Often
But
the
okay, no, it's nothing. It's. I'm not trying to prove that your strategy is not good. Not at all. Your strategy is very sound, and provided that you have enough time, it works.
Right.
I must admit that it works. Not admit. I'm always
Sure.
building a camp that eventually. um you will be ahead in the game, but it could take a long time
that's true, Sasha. It's
because
true. Very often the premium income that I investors following this system get is smaller than the decline in the market. The
it's
market
not
decline.
just a matter of being smaller. It's much smaller. It's not even comparable. You may
However,
take meetings.
however, Sasha,
Yeah.
if people who invest the way we do, which is not pick individual stocks, but pick an exchange traded fund which tracks the S&P 500, and SPY happens to be the best. It has the narrowest bid-ask spread. Most investors don't even know what a bid-ask spread is, and it's an expense to the investors. SPY has the lowest expense. So if people invest in SPY and then write covered calls, puts and calls rather, write puts and calls, they can make money even though the drop in the market can exceed the revenue that they get, the premium income revenue. However, the way we see things is that the more the market drops, the greater a bargain it becomes. So you say get out when the market drops 7%. We say when the market drops 7%, buy more. And then as it drops more, buy more. And so you can't lose. I mentioned previously that empires have a 100% failure rate, but the failure of the American empire is nowhere near in sight yet. So
Well,
buy more.
I
So we
have I have some questions about that. I
Yeah.
really do, because there is a great danger that all countries, including China and Canada and European Union and Japan and Korea and just name it, they will have uprising against US and its
Yeah,
policy.
I think Trump is the X factor in the total decline of the American empire.
Yes,
When you go
absolutely.
us against the world's going to win. And also, I think it's the monkey wrench in any strategy that Trump has thrown into the mix is beyond me how you're going to be able to survive it. Milan's strategy is good and sound, and eventually Trump will be out of office. We'll return to sanity, and we'll have normal trade relations again. And then the market will come back. But until then, we have companies like Nvidia, AMD that are manufacturing chips, but Trump has taken away people that buy them, and he's saying you no longer have this large customer base. Now that hits the company's bottom line, and the stock price is going to go down. And this is
and
not because the company has done anything differently, anything wrong. It's simply because Trump has passed these insane tariffs. And countries are now saying, we don't want to trade with you. And we've lost our companies in the United States have lost a significant customer base because of one man, Donald Trump.
And you
And
see,
Nvidia took a huge drop today. Why would that be? Because of Donald Trump. Nvidia took a huge loss today.
Yeah.
And
It was
Donald,
China. China is a big customer of theirs, and China has announced that they're not doing business. So
no,
it's
you know what's happened is that the Nvidia a while ago, more than a year ago, they designed a special chip for China.
yeah,
So it would not include the latest development as to appease US regulators that not all NVIDIA's arsenal will be used for these chips designed specifically for China. And even this, Trump says, oh, that's okay, you will still have to pay the tariffs and duties and all that. So NVIDIA was forced to on a specially designed for China chip, still they have to incur the $5.5 billion charge for this quarter's earnings. So of course stock went down significantly,
Yeah.
7.57%.
It's completely Trump's fault.
Absolutely, 100%.
The encouraging thing is that when you take a look at the list of Trump's former friends, Republicans, who are now turning against him, that list is growing.
And that's
Yeah.
because Republicans have normally been free traders. They've been for free trade. And
Jim, let me just check. With your idea that, okay, the 4 years will by, Trump will be out of power and everything will return back to normal.
I
There
hope.
is one problem. The damage has been already done. Very
Absolutely
substantial.
correct.
Yeah,
That's
so
why I think we are in a recession. We won't be reporting the recession until months from now. But I think we're currently in it because the American economy has stalled and is suffering right now because of what Trump has done.
A recession is defined as 2 declining quarters in a row.
Yeah, it'll take some time to be called a recession, but we're in it right now, is my point.
yeah, and unfortunately, there is no relief inside. I'm trying to imagine what would have to happen for market to have even a little bit of a run, say Suckers rally, for example, right? Everybody would like to have Suckers rally at least for a day or two to sell some stocks, but it's just not us. It's all professionals. It's everybody is there trying to sell. They're not selling right now because they're not getting good enough prices. So they're trying to suck people into kind of a rally. Oh, market is oversold. Oh, market is oversold, so there is a rally. Go and buy. But then there is unloading. They're unloading every rally in the last few days. That there was one, they were unloading billions of dollars worth of stocks, and the rally was over very quickly. So you cannot rely on these rallies; they're not going anywhere. It's only gold and only silver, and you know why? Not because gold and silver is that great investments, because of U.S. dollar. This year, US has to refinance, guess what?
Yeah.
$9 trillion worth of its debt.
And who's going to buy it? Yeah.
Elon Musk, maybe. I don't know who's going to buy it.
This is the thing. I heard for 4 years during the Biden administration that the recession is right around the corner. I saw no evidence of it.
No.
And we're now how long into the Trump administration? Months. And now I think we are in a recession, and it was caused by presidential policies that were reckless, and they were childlike in their he was mad at somebody, mad at China, so he made these terrible decisions to destroy the free trade that we had been enjoying, prospering from. The average American consumer was enjoying record, the average American company was enjoying record earnings, and it was passed down to the consumer in products that could be more affordable. Now we got over the COVID era inflation, and inflation seemed to have been tamed. Well, it's going to come roaring back, and we're going to see higher prices because these tariffs are not going to be absorbed entirely by companies. They're going to be passed on to the consumers. So we're going to be having fewer jobs, more unemployment, lower wages, and higher prices. And that's all thanks to one man fiddling or playing golf while the country is burning.
Here's something astounding about that one man. A friend, when was going to the United States, Canadian, at the border, the officer at the border crossing asked my friend, "What do you think of our president?" And she said, "Well, I'm glad he's your president and not ours." And they made them turn back. They made them turn back. They wouldn't allow them into the country, which means that Trump has gone that far that he will prevent people who dislike him from Canada to enter the United States.
That's astounding.
The fact that he can do that is astounding. Yeah. And also, he's going to make every effort possible to stay in power.
That's for sure.
Even though constitutionally that's not possible, he'll do everything to change that and stay in power. And so,
No, in his view, strong men like Putin and the guy in Hungary and these types of people, Kim in North Korea, these are the people he admires. They don't have congresses and judicial systems to pay attention to, and he doesn't. He wants to railroad everybody, including the Supreme Court. So, hopefully Congress can reel him in to some extent. I haven't seen the spine there in but people are talking, they're whispering now. Maybe they'll start speaking out loud.
You see, unfortunately, United States is becoming more and more lawless country where each individual on his territory, whatever he's responsible for, he creates his own rules and he acts his own way because there is no real way to control him or punish him or at all. It's just, okay, this is you're a little tsar on this territory and you can do anything what you want. I've experienced that in many years ago, 12 years ago, last time I was in Moscow, and I was stopped on the street Friday evening by a policeman. And although my only problem was that I didn't have my passport with me, I had a photocopy because I was always scared that I could lose my passport. It would be a great hassle to renew. So I had a copy. And I said, okay, I have my passport in where I live, and here is a copy. He said, I understand that, but okay, because you really don't have a passport, you have only copy, it's not good enough. So I will put you in jail until Monday morning because now everything is closed. So Monday morning you will call to your Canadian consulate and they will provide you a lawyer. So maybe you will be freed by Monday evening. So essentially I was looking for 3 days in Russian jail. And that was not a very appealing concept. And to avoid that, I asked him if there is a way to settle this problem. I recognize that I should have had my passport.
It's called the pride.
So the amount of 1,000 rubles fixed that problem right there. So for 1,000 rubles, I avoided spending 3 days in Russian jail. So, for example, just I read about it. There was an international conference in the United States, and Chinese professor visited the conference. On the way back at the airport, he was asked to provide his cell phone for inspection. He was not aware that it's even possible, and but he had no choice. He wanted to leave. His plane is leaving in half an hour. Okay, so he provided his phone, and he was hassled for an hour and a half. He missed his plane, so on. They were checking, they were taking some screenshots, and so on. An hour and a half later, they gave him back his phone. So this is some kind of a, and I mean, you're in a situation there's very little remedies available to you. You cannot call your lawyer and say, "Well, look at that! They got my iPhone. Do something for me or so on." It's impossible. You are against a huge, lawless country, and unfortunately, a lot of Canadians now avoid any trips to the United States. Even those who are choosing Caribbean cruises, they are going to Puerto Rico or any other ports to avoid going to Florida to start a cruise or something like this. It's just enormous.
We have read quite a bit about people being exported to countries that they've made administrative mistakes and they've exported people improperly.
Yeah.
They haven't gone through due process. All the types of things that we think of as guarantees in the United States, they're no longer guaranteed, and they can run roughshod over any type of legitimate proceedings that we would always have assumed were natural. We did not have to show papers in the United States like many countries do.
Yes.
And That's going to change too. And that's my opinion. If Trump stays in power.
Well, it's very difficult to make any prediction what's going to happen. The
That's
situation
true.
is really unhealthy. Trump announced April 2nd a liberation day. A liberation from what? From your stocks and your money? What kind of liberation is that? So it's very difficult to have any meaningful discussion about any trading strategy except getting into gold and silver. And why is that? I never liked gold or silver, but the US dollar is going only one way.
I
There is
agree.
a refinance of $9 trillion. You saw what's happened on the day when he had to basically getting back to 10% of tariffs on April 9th. There was an auction for 10 years old bills, and there were no bids. He had to bring up interest rates 3 times in the first few hours of it was on Wednesday, and only then the auction was okay, but at much higher price that they had to
Yeah.
pay
Yeah.
buyers. So the same will happen every time with $9 trillion to refinance. So
That should be an
that's
impeachable offense right there.
it
I mean,
is. It
what
is.
he's done to the country, that's criminal. The
What
cost that he has just
well,
incurred.
look, American people had no choice. They didn't want Biden or Kamala Harris. I mean, so they got a criminal, convicted criminal that they impeached several times, they
Twice.
bankrupt several times.
Yes.
Person just to avoid little uh, Sleepy Joe. Well, everybody is now missing Sleepy Joe. So Sleepy Joe is sleeping. Okay, he went for a nap. Okay, now he sleeps. He sleeps 16 hours a
Well,
day. It's okay.
one of the funny things about being president is that if you have professionals around you, your job is much easier.
Yeah.
And Trump hired amateurs around him.
Oh, they're horrible. I mean, each
Well,
one.
it's interesting that 1/3 of qualified voters did not vote. What does that tell you? You know that about a third voted for Trump, more or less about a third. About a third voted for Kamala Harris, and exactly a third did not even vote. So did he really get elected? You wonder about that. You know
Yeah.
that.
People don't think it matters, but obviously it does.
Yeah. Now I want to get back
Your
to
vote counts.
the Russia, the difference between Russia and the United States. In New York City, if it rains, on every corner there will be somebody wanting to sell you an umbrella for $5. If it rains in St. Petersburg in Russia, you have to go to a department store. You have to walk up 6 flights because the elevator doesn't work and the escalator doesn't work. And then when you get to the top of the 6th floor where they sell umbrellas, you hope you know somebody personally who will sell you an umbrella. That's the difference. Yeah. So a friend of mine says, uh, what's the difference in a high school student teacher asked the students, what's the difference between capitalism and communism? And the student says, under capitalism, man exploits man. Under communism, it's the other way around.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting in our time is that the economy is becoming so important, this trade issues and so on, that all other ideological issues, that whether it's a communism against capitalism or LGBTQ people's right or anything else, it's all going on a back burner. Nobody is concerned anymore because you cannot enforce right of the normal people in most of the countries in the world. So why anybody would care LGBTQ or it's communism or socialism or all that issue? It's economy stupid. And that's really all what it is today. So therefore the rights of several different categories of people are being violated and no one is bearing responsibility for that. It's like becoming a new reality. And thank you to Donald Trump for that.
Concerning gold, Sasha, we feel people who follow our investment philosophy, we feel that we own enough gold by owning S&P 500.
You have exposure. Yes.
Yeah, that's in there. Now, interestingly about gold, it fluctuates up and down. It fluctuates, but somebody from Mars coming down and looking at what we do, they say, well, they mine gold, they dig a hole in the ground, they look for gold, they find it, they refine it, they make it into bricks and so on, and then they move it over to the United States and put it back in the ground, and hire people to watch over it. The great thing about gold, it has the same purchasing power as it did 5,000 years ago. That is, a given weight of gold will buy the same amount of anything, of
Whatever you
wheat,
want. Yeah.
rice, or barley, whatever. As it does. The fact that it's retaining its purchasing power is definitely useful. But the fact that it fluctuates allows uh, some people to make money. Eric Sprott, for instance, has become a billionaire for assets under management. That's how he did it. But selling gold and encouraging people to buy gold, while in the last little while before a few years ago, in a rising market, his investors lost money. Now, it takes a special talent to lose money in a rising market. Eric Sprott.
Well, I think you're missing a point, Milan. The gold and silver today is a way to escape falling US dollar. I don't know any other way. Maybe you do. But
Holding
the
gold,
point,
holding
It's
gold.
just 6 months ago we were talking about the safe play was the U.S. dollar. That's the effect of Trump. Yes.
But
Speaking of the effect of Trump and everything like that, hey, Sasha and Jim and Milan, as y'all were talking, and I was doing some of my work at my one of my other jobs, the grading of tests and all along those lines. I was just wondering, y'all's thoughts. Have we got a new reality show? Because is America and the White House become a new reality show? Because that is where Trump came from. Is some people say he came from economics and his own businesses, which many of them failed and everything. But he was the king of reality TV with The Apprentice and all along those lines. So is he just made The Apprentice White House? So is that what we have, The Apprentice White House?
it's much worse than original Apprentice because in the original show, nobody was losing any money, and you can just switch your television to another program or switch it off at all, and that's it.
You could change your reality.
In this situation, it's not reality, it's not show. It's you have a madman, a criminal who is destroying economy of United States, number one, all world trade order which has been established by United States since Second World War. So he is ruining something what the American people, the generations of American
Yeah,
people and politicians
exactly. You're right.
build it up. They actually invented this existing system, and he broke it. The idiot, okay, I'm quiet here, and it's just insane. And American people, I don't know when they will understand that they have to have uprising, arrest the criminal, and put him in jail. When it's going to happen, we'll see, but I think we will get there.
Even
There was
Fox.
a global economy that was soaring and the world was prospering for decades. And the fact that one person could make such a change, a dramatic change, and destroy the global economy, that free trade is no longer an assumption that we can make. It's no longer something that we can count on. And it's been shown that it's fragile and it can be broken, as Sasha says, and it has been broken. Can it be repaired? When are other countries going to trust the United States again?
Never.
And why would they?
It's not reliable partner. It's not reliable. We can say one thing and do another thing, and it contradicts itself, and it depends who is taking power. And if you have one madman, who guarantees that there will be no another madman
Yeah.
in 2.5 years? How are you
Even
going to do that?
Fox News has been a great supporter of Trump's. and
Yeah.
even they are now starting to talk against him. So it's astounding that he got so much support. It's astounding that he got elected, and even his friends are now turning against him, which is encouraging. And as I mentioned earlier, even many Republicans, former friends of his, are now talking against him, and that list of Republicans who are turning against Trump is a growing list. So he
Uh,
will destroy from within.
well, I'll tell you one thing that there are a lot of new alliances, trade alliances are being formed, including arch enemies like China against Japan and Korean, South Korea. They were arch enemies for so many years. And now, believe it or not, they formed alliance to trade with no trade barriers.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, something like this. In China is does have diplomats all over Europe negotiating with them. Canada has done just a few weeks ago first ever direct shipment of Canadian oil to China. They build up the pipeline from Edmonton to British Columbia port and ship it from there. Now, United States slept this process because they assume that all Canadian oil is destined for United States, and then United States would resell it to China. No, 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 not so fast. It's done. It's over with. Now Canada can sell this, and Canada is now busy exploring all kind of trading possibilities, including liquefied gas to Europe and to China and to Japan. So, in fact, Canada is becoming a very dangerous competitor to United States, even in liquefied business. When United States were miles ahead of anybody else just a few years ago, and today Canada is getting there. There will by the end of the year they will have first shipments of liquefied gas from Canada. So it's becoming a situation. Why would United States has something that will not be able to be found anywhere in the world? What is there some kind of commodities? In fact, it's quite the opposite. United States need rare metals, for example, rare earth metals, which China controls 90% of
And
that.
it was way ahead in that.
Yeah, and they already said that no more shipments to United States. And believe it or not, it's possible to manufacture cars, electric cars, or planes.
All sorts of electronics, right?
And China
Including chips.
also. China, believe it or not, they just canceled all contracts with Boeing. Thank you. No more Boeing planes. So they're going to take probably Airbus planes, which, in fact, by the way, they're much better than Boeing anyway. But
And,
um,
yeah.
but they
You
had
know,
long contracts.
Canada is such a large country physically, the second largest country. Russia is bigger, but because Canada is so large, it has to have nearly everything that we need by way of resources. We simply haven't found them yet.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Canada has abundance of everything, and I think economically speaking, Canada's future, the next 5, probably 10 years, is very bright. In fact, because Canada is producing a lot of food, it has all minerals, it has oil and gas, and just name it.
Well,
Even
no, but interestingly, when it comes to water, the country that has the most water is Brazil because of the Amazon River,
yeah,
and the second largest is Russia. Russia has more water than the second largest country with water because of Lake Baikal. The third one is the United States, and Canada is fourth. United States has more water than Canada, but you cannot make water, you cannot destroy water, but you can certainly mismanage water, and that's what's happening in the United States.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
and United States always is interested. This is why they're so interested to acquire Canada's 51st state
Yeah.
because of all the natural
And
resources.
Greenland,
So
don't forget.
I agree with that.
Greenland, they have some natural resources, but mostly it's like, as I explained, it's a strategic move to have better uh, the defense for the aerial attacks from the Russian missiles. But Putin is, or Trump is becoming to befriend Putin so much and make it the best friends. So why is he worried about Putin's attacks? In fact, his plan is for if Ukraine will be somehow neutralized through a peace treaty or just any way, so that would open doors for Putin to attack Western Europe. Western Europe, this is arch enemy of the United States. This is enemy number one, not China. It's Western Europe. And if he would unleash, but the United States will not attack directly itself the Western Europe, but to have a bully like Putin to attack after Ukraine is no longer involved in defense, because with Ukraine is around, Russia cannot attack Western Europe because Ukraine, together with France and Germany and UK, they will together bunch against Russia. And what Trump is going to do to help Russia to fight this war, that's kind of awkward, even for Trump.
Oh, it's very depressing to think about, but yeah,
It
but,
is.
buddying up with dictators is not the American way, and you
It's
know,
not. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not American way to elect president a criminal, the four-time bankrupt. That's not American way. So if
yeah,
America is
I
going
I
out of
I
its way,
would have put anything down that saying that it wasn't possible, but I was wrong, and
Benevolent dictatorship does work. For example, Marshal Tito in Yugoslavia was a benevolent dictator. He, for example, introduced a non aligned movement, which is the largest movement on the planet, largely because India belongs to it. But Marshal Tito started that. And now, if you have a dictator, he doesn't have to go to parliament and to Congress to discuss anything. When he makes a decision to do something, it gets done. So that's what's happening in China.
well, I had a Chinese friend tell me that the best system of government is good emperor, and the worst system of government is bad emperor. So,
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
well said. Yeah. Well,
And
we live in a very interesting time. Of course, it's yes, Milan.
but Putin will be followed likely by another Putin. That's what's happened in Russia.
and will Trump be followed by another Trump? And when is
That,
the country going to
maybe
wake
not.
up?
Maybe not. Maybe not.
You
Joseph
must wake up.
Joseph Stalin was followed by, I think, Malenkov, followed by exactly the same. Every Russian president was the same as Joseph Stalin until Gorbachev came along. And we think Gorbachev is the saint of the 20th century. In Russia, he's the least well regarded former prime minister or premier that they had because the Russian empire fell apart under his watch. But every one of them was followed by another one that was exactly the same. And that's what's going to happen with Putin, who is going to be followed by another Putin. Won't he?
Yeah, well, the U.S. might get J.D. Vance, and that could be scary in its own right and everything. But Sasha and Jim and even Milan, you said that they hadn't had past presidents that had criminal history, and there are some that would argue against that because definitely Richard Nixon had a criminal history and Warren Harding had a criminal history. So there might have been past presidents that had some criminal background. I'm not saying.
I
I'm
mean,
sorry, Nixon was not elected with a criminal
Yeah.
record.
yeah,
He,
post-election,
while he was a president, and even under President
and he was
Trump,
pardoned anyway.
he would be
Yeah, he was
acquitted because today Supreme Court said that the president is immune for prosecution. So
Yeah.
if it would be relevant at that time, Nixon would be still a president until the end of his term.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, and there are people that have talked about other presidents, including some that are ancient, like whether that was Lincoln or Washington or Jefferson, that might have had some criminal enterprises. But like you said, they were, if they had criminal enterprises, they were not as out in the open as Trump is, because Trump doesn't hide his criminal enterprises. As a matter of fact, he sometimes touts and brags about them and everything like that. But there might have been some others, including some that, and Jim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that might have been tied to the mafia and the mob. I mean, I think that was part of the accusations around Kennedy and others as far back as the days of Washington and others.
Well, Kennedy's father was well known for, not being always on the right side of the law. But, it's one of those things where, in what you want to do when you have as Teddy Roosevelt called it, the bully pulpit, you have the ability to lead a country and set their value system and tell the country what is expected of them. Like John F. Kennedy said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Now that sets expectations. And so when we have someone who's convicted of 31 felonies, twice impeached, back in power, what is that message? That message is cheat the system, win at all costs, step on the neck of your neighbor to get ahead. That's what we're teaching people to do now. And it's not what I was brought up to believe in as representing the values of this country. So what we're changing into is not a country that I'm proud of.
Yep.
And when we pivot away and back to what made this country great in the first place, the ideals that the founding fathers had for what would be not a monarchy, but a democracy. Representative, sure, but still a democracy.
Yeah.
And these values, these aspirations, and they weren't always reality. All men are not created equal, but it is a phrase that is aspirational.
You know what, James and everybody else here. United States is the third most populous country on the planet, and a country that's that large will have some of the worst and some of the best. At its best, the United States leads the world. Of the top 10 universities, 6 are American. What does that mean? When you take a look at Nobel Prize winners, most of them are Americans who came from somewhere else, probably, to the United States for the opportunity. But at its worst, the United States also leads the world. Both are there at its best and at its worst, simply because of the large size of the country. When we take a look at countries that we admire, like Norway and Sweden, Norway's got the population of the Greater Toronto area, 8 billion people, and they're all similar, they're all alike. So it's easy for them to stand out as being first rate.
And here we have an advocate for Spain.
Spain is muy bien, senor.
Yeah, great. I'm happy for you.
I just came in to see how the American stock market's doing. Are we, and also how the dollar's doing relative to the euro. Both
we're crying tears here, and they're not crocodile tears. We're just weeping.
Yeah, all we're trying to do is to make Spain great again, and we hope you will help us.
Listen, the Armada might be coming after you guys. So they're bringing up the Armada again. But the problem I have is the dollar versus the euro. The dollar tanked. It was like
we were saying 6 months ago. We were saying the safest investment is still the U.S. dollar, and now thanks to Donald Trump, we are saying the reverse now.
Well, it's a problem when you give them U.S. dollar and they give you 88 cents, then they take their commissions off, and it may be less than 88 cents. So,
and for years we would have this incredible national debt problem, and we would offer these bills and there were people lining up to buy them, and now we can hardly get people to buy them.
Yeah, and it's driving up interest rates. Okay, and when it drives
the rate go up, and so that costs us more. That costs us more. Thank you, Donald Trump.
Yeah, it drives up the interest rates on the national debt.
Which is huge,
and that starts to add up to real money.
The national debt is the real concern. The interest payments on the debt today, American debt today, interest payments exceed the money that they're spending on education. They exceed the money that they're spending on the military. Can you believe that? That's interesting.
Okay. Well, I have a group of attorneys that I'm talking to right now that filed a lawsuit, which I found to be very interesting. I'm trying to get it on one of our shows. And you'll love what the lawsuit is, okay? It's against Donald Trump because he doesn't have the authority to impose tariffs. It's a legislative function. And He's trying to do it under the Emergency Economic Act that no president has ever used.
What
And
kind of emergency is there?
that's by the way, Sasha, that's the problem. What type of emergency is it? There is no emergency. So his tariffs, at least according to this complaint, are all illegal. They have to be done by this group in Washington, D.C. called Congress. And they have some very substantial cases. And not only that, I talked to some of the attorneys. They're also from good law firms, good law schools. Now, what I mean by that, okay, they went to University of Michigan, they went to University of Chicago, they went to Georgetown. Now, Trump, I look at his lawyers, where they go to. Thomas Cooley, okay, Thomas Cooley, who are they? If you ever look at U.S. News,
But it's going to go to the Supreme Court.
Graduated from University.
From university, you know. So these are good attorneys that actually have a very, and it's not a huge 60, 80 page complaint. It's very small, and it's before the U.S. International Trade Court, which is a court I never go to because it has to be an Article I court. They have the U.S. Tax Court, which is like specific to taxes. Apparently there's a trade court, but I never go to it. And it might be very interesting because the only appeal may be to the Supreme Court of the United States. And this would be fast-tracked up there, assuming they take certain, and they would definitely take jurisdiction if the trial judge goes, yes, the tariffs are illegal. Whoa, are you going to hear, that will be a firestorm. Anyway, I invited them on Lawyer's Den, but the problem is the filming, they have a conflict. So I said economics, and so I'm trying to find a show which we could get on. Maybe we could get on the investment show. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll bring this as another possibility.
The tariffs aren't illegal, but Congress has to pass them.
That's correct. The tariffs are illegal, but remember the way our system purportedly works. These people create the law. The executive branch enforces the law. It's not the executive branch creating the law.
Right.
You comprende, senor? So these people that have to create the tariffs, not that guy. And the only reason they give him the power is under a national emergency.
Yeah.
Well, what national emergency did we have to create Liberation Day? What was it? Sasha, tell me, what was it? Jim, the emergency.
It was a whim of one man who is a criminal, who is convicted criminal at that. And if American people had the choice between Sleepy Joe and
they didn't put that in the complaint.
Sleepy Joe is by
They
far.
want to stick to the issues at hand. Like I said, it's what I call a well-pled complaint. And the other key thing they have is standing. Standing, very important. Because a lot of people say,
absolutely. Where does their standing come
from? Here's how they got the standing. They have 3 small business people who are trading internationally. And when the tariffs hit, their business came to a stop. They have standing. So they're representing 3 small businesses that, and I have one client that does international trading. What he does is he imports cheese. I've had him for like maybe 30, 40 years. He imports cheeses from Italy. Okay. Now, let me tell you something. That's a very thin business. In other words, there's not a lot of markup. You bring the cheese in.
Or small.
Yeah, it's very, very thin. You bring the cheese in from Italy, and then you distribute it all over the United States. Okay. Well, you put a tariff on his cheeses, that makes the business go to a complete stop.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, who's gonna pay for it? The clients are going to pay for it. He can't pay for it because he loses money. Literally, he's underwater. And so he would have standing in a suit like this. And so they passed the first hurdle. They have standing. They have the second one, jurisdiction and venue, because the International U.S. Trade Court probably has jurisdiction. And now the judge eventually has to hear the case. I'm excited to see what would happen because it's like a football game. Okay. In other words, it's like a football game. Okay, now what's going to happen next?
Yeah,
and if
unscripted drama.
Yeah, it's drama. Yeah, it's free drama. Well, when he became president, I knew he was going to bring the circus to town.
Economists universally agree that tariffs are not good for anybody. Occasionally, to protect local industry, imposing tariffs can do that. But outside of that, tariffs don't benefit
The legal issue is who has the authority to impose tariffs. Now, remember, when you elect these people in Congress, are you electing them to sit around and watch Donald Trump? Okay, or are they elected to create the law and Donald Trump's supposed to enforce the law? See, that's the way it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to work that Donald gets to create the law and enforce the law. No, that's not happening. Now, what I would have done, but I don't know how you do it, is I just won't pay the tariffs. However, the real problem is so many cargo ships come through the ports. The border patrols are almost, they get you before they can come in the United States. In other words,
Nick, ultimately it'll be decided by the Supreme Court. How much confidence do you have in them?
I actually have a lot of confidence in them because, the thing is, Trump has a big ego. They said that Trump donated an ego to Harvard University, was the biggest donation that Harvard ever received. Okay, but don't tell these justices they have big egos too. Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts, they're going to vote the way they think, and they've shown it on several cases. Some of them are like Alito. He's a little bit of a sycophant, so I'm not sure.
Alito and Thomas.
Alito and Thomas, yeah, you're not going to get their vote, but you have those two swing votes, and so this could be upended. I think it would be a super case before the Supreme Court because it really deals with who has the right to impose these tariffs. And I always thought it was a legislative function. It was not an executive function, except in an emergency, which there wasn't an emergency, so now it isn't. But,
well, he's also, doing the enforced immigration, kicking people out of the country. He's using an act that nobody uses.
Yeah. There are people complaining about that too. But see, here's the problem. Okay, there are some people that have been deported incorrectly.
Administrative error.
Wrongful detainer. Now, here's what they have. They have a massive civil suit against the U.S. government. I'm serious. The thing is, a wrongful detainer suit. Oh my Lord! As soon as they get back here, which they will.
With no due process.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hey, Jim, this guy's a windfall for the lawyers. I mean, I'm serious. Because the thing is, remember, lawyers, we get like 30-40% of the case, whoever gets this case. All right. And it's almost a summary judgment because they've already admitted that, oops, we made a mistake. We deported a citizen. Oh, really? That's a mistake. Now,
have some imported Italian cheese.
Okay, which means summary judgment, the case is over. So the only issue will go to damages. And this is going to be interesting because how much damages could you say when you get deported?
I mean, what's fair?
What?
What's fair? I mean,
it could be a 7+ figure award, Jim.
Yeah.
No, I would say it's $1 million, maybe multi-million-dollar case. And remember, the attorneys, they're going to make at least a third, 25-30%. They'll make $600,000-$700,000 minimum off that. And the first case I ever handled, now this goes 40 years ago, I practiced real law, as opposed to doing pensions. We won a case, it was $800,000. We got a third of it. And I was a little pike attorney, and all of a sudden we're walking around with $270,000 on one case. Yes, law practice was great, And so the thing is, don't be surprised that these people, once they come back here, are going to lawyer
attorneys lining up.
Oh yeah, of course. Lawyer out, and here comes the wrongful detainer action. And there's so
we think that this case could open the door for millions of lawsuits against Trump's administration for the losses.
It really depends, Sasha. It depends on if it's a U.S. citizen. See, the thing is, if they took Jim, and I don't know why they don't deport you, Jim.
I know. I've been asking.
If they took Jim and they go, Jim, you look like a foreign national. We're going to send you to El Salvador for your incarceration. Oh, he's going to come back with buckets of money because the thing is, you have wrongful detainer, you have Miranda issues, you slap them heavy, and so the issue won't even be a legal issue. To be damages. How much how much will they be willing to settle for? I think you're going to look at a nice 7-figure judgment. Easy. Normally, like I said, on Hans Niemann case, I think it goes more. That little guy in El Salvador, will be a multi-millionaire when he gets back here. Watch.
But Nick, I had something else in mind. Let's see this cheese importer from Italy. Let's say he'll get a few $1 million for his damages or so.
Sure.
Would that open the door for thousands of lawsuits from all different American businessmen?
Yeah, it could be very bad for the.
They don't have to prove anymore whether it.
No, you basically have a summary judgment. All you have to do is file a suit and get a claim. You're right, Sasha.
So the question: who is responsible for payment?
Jim will pay. Jim's going to pay because he's
we'll pay. Yeah,
Jim, you're going to
start printing more money. Is what
I'm paying my taxes this year in Spain, so I don't give a rat's for what you guys do. But Jim will pay because he's in the U.S. So
I'm in California, so I'll pay.
You'll love this one, Jim. Everything that Trump does wrong that's going to cost the U.S. taxpayer money, you're going to be paying for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. But what's also going to happen is inflation is going to go up because they're going to print money to pay this debt.
To pay for this. Well, I'm just waiting to see how the circus plays out in town.
You know about
the smirk on your face is just.
I'm going to go back and start practicing law again. I mean, the thing is, when I was a little punk, you make $250,000 off one case. I do a lot of pension work, but you're basically filling out forms for nickels and dimes. You have to do a lot of it. In litigation, you can just go cha-ching, file the suit and take off, buddy.
Yeah. It was a funny story about printing money in.
Trump is good for the legal system.
It's good for the legal profession. You're right.
In times of Soviet Union, so one guy he invented a printing machine that prints real money, like large Russian rubles, and finally, so machine started to work, and first batch, he noticed that it prints only 15 rubles banknotes. And they didn't exist at the time. There were 10 or 5, but 15, there was no such thing. So he printed a mountain of this 15. So now he was looking where he can exchange this $15 bills for 10 and 5 or anything like that. So finally, the people suggested him one inventor who also invented the machine, and he met him. And he says, okay, bring all your $15 15 rubles bills, I will exchange it. He brought it and he exchanged it for 7 and 8 rubles bills because he invented a machine that could print only $7 and $8 bills. That's about printing money. Anyway, listen, we are living in a very interesting time, and I will be looking forward to see you back on next week, Wednesday, 1 o'clock. And at that time, have a great weekend and have a great trading. Whatever you trade, good luck. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.